Hello, this is the second video on regular expression. So in order to speed up our tests with various types of regular expression, I made a very simple web page to do this. And this is the PHP script corresponding to that particular script. The first thing we do is I define a lot of variables. So the name of each input in the form has its own str string. Str is really just the abbreviation of string, so I'm just emphasizing the string regex form is really just the string regex form itself. Same thing for subject and also pattern. So this way I can use val subject to actually store the value of the subject get parameter and also val pattern to store the value of the pattern get parameter. And you can see that these two are initialized. The vals are initialized by a ternary operator. The first part of the ternary operator is isSet underscore get blah 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 all the way up to the question mark. So this is really just checking, do we have subject as a get parameter? If so, we are going to use the actual value. And if not, we are going to use an empty string to initialize val subject. And the same thing happens with val pattern. So when we actually create a form using this kind of lengthy print, what we do is we use str subject or string subject and string pattern as well as string regex form to indicate the name of the various input fields. But when we specify the value, it is using val subject and val pattern. There's no need to specify that for the submit button itself. It just needs to be submit. So this way, the form can retain the input from the previous run so that we can increasingly increase the difficulty or the complexity of what we are searching in and also what we are searching for. When the form is after the form is printed, then we actually do some processing. The first thing we do is to check whether the submit button is pressed or not. And that can be indicated by the regex form get variable itself is being set. If that is the case, then we'll also check to make sure that the subject and the patterns are both specified. And in this case, we're only using isSet for the first two lines to make sure that they are in fact get variables, but they may be empty. It is okay for the subject to be empty, but the pattern should not be empty. So I also want to double check to make sure that it is not the case, the exclamation point is negation. It is not the case that the pattern string is empty. So after that, we get into the actual subroutine to do the regular expression match, which is done by preg underscore match. And all we are doing is to refer to the pattern, which is a get variable, and the subject, which is another get variable to specify the strings for the pattern and also for the subject. And I store the result into regex match result, which then is used in a conditional statement. If we get a 1 as a result, then we say there's a match. If we get a 0 as a result, there's no match. Or if we get false, which is the last case, there's an error in the whole thing. And then the else here has nothing to do. And then we close the script portion of the code portion of the script. And then we close the form, close the body, close the HTML document. And that's the entire file. So when we switch to the actual form, okay, we'll go ahead and refresh. And let's get rid of all the get parameters. And just press the enter button to go to that form the first time. So we'll try something simple first. Let's say the subject is tag is boring. Okay. Oops, I cannot type my own name. Tag is boring. There we go. And we'll look for something that's easy to look for. Let's look for the pattern OR. And you can see OR is a part of boring. And if you click submit, it's not going to work. So let's try this out and see why it is going to complain about it. And right here, we have a warning. It is not an error, it is a warning. It complains that the delimiter of a pattern must not be alphanumeric or backslash. And in this case, it is alpha because O is is in the alphabet, and so is R. So what we need to do is to make sure that we use the proper delimiters, which is slash to start and slash to end. We can use many other characters to start and finish, but the convention is to use slashes. And then we submit again, and it says there's a match. Not really surprising, is it? All right, so let's look for ORE or, okay, and then hit submit. And this time it should not be found. And it just says here there's no match, which is so far so good. Now we'll go ahead and try the boundary stuff, okay, which is \b and another \b here. And there's no match because or is a part of the word boring. But if we look for is, then it should be able to find it because is a word on its own, and as a result, it is found because it starts with a word boundary and it also ends with a word boundary. Now let's check out tag. Okay, and do you think it is going to be this pattern found? In other words, is the beginning of a string considered a boundary? And for the same token, is the end of a string also a boundary? But this one is only testing whether the beginning is a boundary or not. And my guess is yes. Okay, submit, and there's a match. Cool. All right. Now let's go look for something that's kind of more fancy. Okay, so I'm going to look for tag. Okay, but I would use T and then a dot and then a K. What this means is I'm looking for something that starts with uppercase T and any character, that's what the dot is representing, and a lowercase k as the third character. And obviously this should be found. Okay, and it says there's a match, which is good. Okay, and then the next thing we'll do is to say, do we have anything that starts with a B, okay, with word boundary? Something that starts with a B and ends with a G, okay? I don't really care what is in between. So if you say, I don't really care what is in between, but it better be a word, then you can use \W to mean a character that can appear in a word. And then we use the asterisk symbol here to mean any number of those. And then we specify a G to mean that word has to end with the actual letter G. And then we have another \B to mean that's another word boundary. And then another slash to end the actual pattern itself. So let's take a look at this one more time and figure out what we are actually searching for. The first part here, okay, the first part is \B, which means we are looking for something that starts with a word boundary. And then this B, which is not escaped, there's no backslash in front of it, is literally just the lowercase b character. Okay, we're looking for something that starts with a word boundary and then the letter B itself, lowercase. And then this one, these three kind of go along together because the \W by itself is just specifying a character that can be a part of a word. And that should be from A to Z. But the asterisk is a quantifier. It says whatever is before it can occur any number of times from 0 to any big number. So that means, together is specifying, well, we can start with a word that that has no additional character between the B and the G. But on the other hand, we can have something that's really long, and that will match as well. This G is all by itself, which means, it is just a letter that we need to match. And then \B again is specifying the word boundary, which can be end of string, can be a punctuation, like in this case, it is the exclamation point. So let's submit and see if we find it. There we go. There is indeed a match. Okay, very good. And let's change the subject itself this time. And for those of you who are fans of this particular music group, you know what we're talking about. Okay, so do you think there's a match? Well, unfortunately, there's not a match because BG is in uppercase here, but it's in lowercase down here. So when you click submit, it should not, there's no match. On the other hand, if I specify an I after the second slash in the pattern, it means, ignore case. So in this case, when I submit, it should find it, because even though there are no additional characters between the B and the G, that's exactly what this is saying. This means any letter that can appear in a word, but we can have zero occurrence of that, as well as 1, 2, 3, and all the way up to a bazillion. So that works too. And then going back to here, we can put a bunch of gibberish in between and click submit. And there's still a match because it can match any number of characters between the B and the G. So you can see how this is really rather useful. All right, so let's get rid of that. And then this time we want to look for, let's say, a 5-digit zip code that has a optional dash and then the 4-digit subcode. Okay, so to specify that, let's say we just want the zip code itself. We don't want anything else. So that means we want the beginning. The caret means the beginning of the subject, followed immediately by 5 digits. Now you can do this, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can do this, but you can also do this to mean that I want a digit appearing exactly 5 times. Now we want to specify the optional part. Now the optional part, because you have to look at the entire optional part and say that entire thing is optional, so you have to group it first using round parentheses. So once you open the parentheses, now we can specify, it has to start with a dash and 4 additional digits. So once again, we use \D to mean a single digit, but since the curly brace 4 is a quantifier to say that we need to have exactly 4 of whatever is before, that means we need to have dash and then exactly 4 digits. This closes the subcode of a zip code, and sometimes we don't want to enter the subcode, so that means this can occur 0 or 1 time, which is specified by a question mark. So the question mark says whatever is before the question mark can occur 0 or 1 time. And then we use another slash to end the string. And over in the subject, well, we'll try something that's just going to fail for sure. Submit, there's no match. Okay, that's hardly surprising. And then we'll give it something that seems to match, but it's not. So we'll start with a space first, and then we'll have the 5-digit zip code. Click the submit button, and it does not match because there's an extra space in front of the entire number. And then the pattern is saying that we have starting from the beginning of the subject. So we have to get rid of that space and try one more time. So, and this time there is a match. What about the dash thingy? Okay, so we'll specify a dash, but only give it 3 digits this time. Okay, click. Oh, uh-oh. This is not supposed to match. All right, so let me look up the quantification again. And meta characters, escape sequence, alternatives, repetition. That's what we're looking for. Okay, we have the star, asterisk, plus, and the question mark. And what we're looking for are the curly braces. Okay, that's not right. Let's look at meta characters because that might be discussed here as well. Start min max quantifier. And that's all it says. All right, PHP, regular expression, quantifier. And here we have, this is the same page that we saw earlier. I see. So if we supply a single number, it should be the same as the range starting and ending with that. Okay, let me try this, 4, comma 4. So that should explicitly say that we're looking for exactly. Oh, I know exactly why it's matching. Okay, that's just me being stupid. Okay, it's matching because the first part is matching. In other words, we were able to find the 5 digits here. So that is matching already. And even if the second part does not match, it will still say that yes, we found something that starts with 5 single digits, and that's why there's a match. So that is why it's matching. To fix this problem, we have to basically say that the entire string has to stop here by using a question mark at the end of the string. So that means we are looking at everything that is submitted in subject, and the entire thing, not only a part of it, has to match this description here. So when I click submit this time, there's still a match. Oh, no, there's no match. Okay, it was spending time processing, so there's no match this time. So this is a pretty good, interesting example. Um, so you might want to kind of think about why this dollar sign is making all the difference. A dollar sign specifies the end of the subject. So if I remove the dollar sign and click submit, it would say there's a match. If I put the dollar sign back here, my dollar sign, and click submit, it will say there's no match. And the issue has to do with, can I match only a part of it, or do I have to match the entire thing? With both the caret and the dollar sign, you're basically saying, let's match the entire thing. So the entire thing has to be matching whatever is between the caret and also the dollar sign at the very end. On the other hand, without the dollar sign, it's basically specifying we have to start from the beginning, but we don't have to match the entire thing. So in that case, it only matched the first 5 digits to the first 5 non-optional digits in the pattern. But since the dash and the 4 other digits is optional, it just says, okay, dash 2, 3, 4 does not quite match dash 4 digits, but that's okay because we are only matching a part of the string starting from the beginning, but not matching the entire string, which is what the dollar sign is specifying, is we have to end the pattern with the end of the subject. All right, so this turns out to be a rather interesting example. And I think that shows you quite a bit more about what regular expressions can do. It is really great for validation. So in this case, we are validating a zip code. If I add one more digit here, it should be valid, and it should say there is a match in this case. So it's really great for validation. You can even specify social security numbers, because that's also just involving digits. You can also specify phone numbers and have your various parts of phone number being optional. So there are many applications to use regular expressions in PHP programming, and in general, anything that has to do with user input or to have to deal with database processing of database entries can really utilize regular expressions. So I'm going to end this video here, and I'm not sure whether I will post any additional videos tonight because I think this is quite a bit to digest already.